This week we'll be solving quadratic equations, and many of the solutions will involve square roots. We will be expressing solutions with square roots as approximated decimals to 3 decimal places. And you can use your calculator to do that. Now, some square roots you can do in your head. Let's start with the second example here, the square root of 81. What the square root sign means is what number times itself makes the number underneath the square root sign. What number times itself makes 81. And it's understood that we're looking for just the positive value when we see this sign. So the answer to this question is 9. And the reason is because 9 times itself makes 81. Let me give you a couple of other easy ones quickly. So let's add the square root of 100. What number times itself equals 100? What's the answer to the square root of 100? Hopefully you said 10. 10 times 10 makes 100. How about the square root of 49? What number times itself equals 49? And the answer to that question is 7. Now I'm going to teach you one additional thing that's going to come up as we learn the quadratic formula. At some point we're going to use plus and minus in front of that square root sign. And that means not only do we want the positive answer to what times itself makes, for instance, 49, let's just use that one in this case, but we also want the negative number that times itself makes 49. So this would have two answers, both positive 7 and negative 7. And think about why. Negative 7 times itself is also positive 49. But when we don't see the plus and minus in front of that square root sign, we are only interested in the positive answer. Alright, now sometimes we come across a number under the square root sign that does not have an integer times itself that makes the number inside. In fact, the answer to problems like this are called irrational numbers, because they actually go on forever in their decimal form without any repeating pattern of digits. If we take the square root of 15 on our calculator, and first you have to find your square root key. If you have a calculator like mine, your square root key doesn't have its own keypad. It actually shares the key with the x squared key. Yours might be located somewhere else on your calculator. But in order to use my square root key, I need to push my shift key and then my square root key, which, by the way, shares the x squared key because those are two opposite operations. They undo each other. Alright, and in the calculator screen, it's going to look like this. It'll have a parentheses for me to fill in the 15. And then if your calculator does have the parentheses, make sure you close them before going on to do any other operations. Now the answer that I get has quite a few decimal places, and again, it does go on forever without a repeating pattern, but it's rounded right here at the end of my calculator screen. We'll choose to round these to the 3 decimal places. So 3.87, and we're going to bump that 2 up to a 3 because the 9 that follows is 5 or greater. So 3.873, or 3 and 873 thousandths. Alright. In the next problem, this is a good example for making sure you close those parentheses. If I don't, my calculator will put divided by 6 under the square root sign and take the square root of all that. But we only want to take the square root of 213 before dividing by 6. So let's watch how we're going to enter that. So again, enter your square root key. Now some calculators you have to put the number in first and then the square root key. If you're not sure about your calculator, please ask me in class. Alright, so we have the square root of 213. Absolutely vital that I close those parentheses. Otherwise my calculator will keep taking the square root of anything else I continue to add to the keys. Now I'm going to divide by 6. And notice that 6 is not under the square root sign, and we don't want it there. Alright, and I get the answer 2.432 if I round correctly. Alright, let's try the next one. 3 plus the square root of 66. Let's estimate this one first. If this were square root of 64, which is very close, the answer would be what? What number times itself makes 64? Well, the answer would be 8, and so the square root of 66 has got to be close to 8. And then I'd be adding 3 to that, and I should get approximately 11. So sometimes it's good to estimate these answers first. Alright, so let's put this one in the calculator. 3 plus square root sign, and we're putting 66 and closing the parentheses. And I do indeed get approximately 11. 11.124. 11 and 124 one-thousandths. Alright, square roots are easy. You can use your calculator, and sometimes you can just use your head.